$67,500 just walked into an escrow account on a live stream. Camera pointed at the counter. Debit card missing. ID out. A stranger named Vanessa on the other end of the phone reading wire instructions to a rapper whose current house is sitting in foreclosure paperwork. And somewhere in the background, the mother of his kids is on his couch with her feet up, cackling about breakfast, while his father, a man who allegedly still clocks in at an Amazon route, is standing over a stove cracking eggs. Real quick, if you're the kind of viewer who wants the whole paper trail and not just the clip everybody's dunking on, tap the like, hit subscribe, flip the bell on so the follow-up doesn't get buried. This one's going somewhere the timeline isn't looking yet. Let me lay this out plain. On July 8th, Jonathan Michael Porter, the West Coast rapper you know as Blueface, went live from a bank lobby and moved $67,500 into escrow on a property he described on stream as the Big House, a second residence he told chat could function as a bachelor pad, a stream house, or a family home depending on the day of the week. The escrow was routed through Connect Escrow, coordinated by an agent identified on the call as Vanessa, with the wire going out to City National. The date on the wire authorization form he signed on camera reads July 9th, 26, and the part nobody's slowing down for yet is the calendar underneath the calendar, because this isn't a man buying a house in a vacuum. This is a man buying a house while another house has his name attached to a foreclosure filing that's been publicly reported for months. Hold that thought. We're coming back to it. Here's what I keep rereading and can't quite get past. The wire didn't clear same day. Vanessa says it herself on the call, the cutoff already passed. Which means what actually happened in that lobby wasn't the purchase. It was the performance of the purchase. The paperwork got signed. The camera got the shot. The chat got the number. But the funds themselves sat in the pipe overnight. And by the time the stream ended, the only thing that had genuinely moved was the narrative. That's not me editorializing, that's the escrow officer telling him on speaker that the transfer was going to have to sit until the next business window. And that gap between the optics and the settlement is the whole seam we're going to pull on today. Because if you rewind about 90 days, this same rapper, full name Jonathan Michael Porter, born January 20th, 1997, raised in the mid-city area of Los Angeles, was in a very different room. He was in a courtroom. He was being sentenced to 4 years in state prison on a 2023 shooting-related plea before being released on bail pending appeal. That's not internet gossip. That's court record covered across outlets Rolling Stone and Complex. So, the man authorizing a $67,500 wire on a live stream is doing it under an active appellate cloud, with a prison sentence he's currently contesting hanging over the whole transaction. Nobody in the stream chat is bringing that up. He isn't bringing it up. The escrow agent obviously isn't bringing it up, but it's the invisible line item on every document he signed that afternoon. Wait, let me back up, because I want to make sure I'm getting the sequence right on this. Reports going back to earlier this year describe a home associated with Blueface operation entering foreclosure proceedings with his mother, Carlisa Saffold, who fans know across her own social presence, publicly linked to the property drama in a series of live streams and posts. Whether that specific property is titled in his name, her name, or an LLC connected to either of them is one of the things I couldn't nail down from public filings alone. County recorder searches in Los Angeles list a lot of Porters, and without a parcel number, the public-facing records get murky fast. So, I'll tell you what I can verify, and I'll tell you where I'm reading pattern. The foreclosure conversation is real. It's been discussed on his own streams. It hasn't been resolved on any public record I could locate. And on top of that unresolved situation, he just wired down a payment on a second address. That's the fracture. That's the seam. That's what we're actually here for. Now the chat, if you were in that stream, you saw him do the bit. Let me hold 68, he says, twice to somebody off camera. I know you'll give it to me. Half joke, half something else. Then he pivots, corrects himself, drops the GTA serious line, tells the audience this new address is going to be bigger than mine, teases turning it into a stream house, teases the Blueface Cavaliers pitch, his ongoing branded fan club /lifestyle push. Somebody in the comments has to know the exact origin story of the Cavalier's branding and when he first trademarked it, because every USPTO search I ran on the exact phrase came back thin, and if there's a filing under a management LLC, I'd want to see it. Drop it in the comments if you've got it. That's the kind of missing paper that changes the whole read on how serious this new house rollout is meant to be. Then the second location shift, he goes home. And this is where the story stops being about a house and starts being about a room. Because his mother, Carlisa Saffold, publicly on his stream, in his kitchen, is sprawled on his couch. His father, referred to on stream as Papa Blue, is cooking eggs. There's a woman on the phone identified as Rebecca, described in the room as Papa Blue's current wife. There's Blueface pregnant partner, referred to on stream as Nivea. There's a kid in the room called Superior. There's a mastiff-looking dog named Batman. And Carlisa is narrating the whole thing out loud like it's an episode she's guest hosting. My mom and my dad are getting back together. Blueface says on camera, grinning. They're getting the family back together. His mother laughs. His father does not confirm. That's not a receipt. Not yet. That's atmosphere. But atmosphere matters when the atmosphere is happening inside a house that just costs $67.5 in earnest money on a different address. Carlisa herself has told a version of the story before, that she isn't at his current place by accident, that she ran away from her own residence, that there's tension with Rebecca on the other line. She said it on stream. She said it out loud. I ran away, she tells the room more than once. What she ran away from, she doesn't specify. Whether it's a domestic dispute, a financial dispute, a media fatigue dispute, or something in between, the audience gets left with the phrase, and no anchor. Reporting on the wider Saffold-Porter family dynamic has been sporadic and mostly driven by their own social output rather than outlet-verified coverage, so pattern reading here is exactly that, pattern reading. But here's the pattern, and you tell me if this lines up for you or if I'm reaching. Every time a major Blueface financial move has hit the public, the reality show era, the cuisine chapter, the merch pushes, the OnlyFans pivot from parties around him, the Cavaliers rollout, Carlisa Saffold has surfaced in the frame within days. Sometimes co-signing, sometimes contradicting, sometimes just present. That's not accusation. That's the paper trail of a decade of her showing up in his content ecosystem, most visibly during the peak of the reality show cycle, when she was a fixture across episodes Zeus Network. The pattern isn't that she's here. The pattern is that she's here right now at this exact moment, on this exact day when a wire that big just left his account. Actually, hold up. I want to zoom in on one line from the kitchen because it's been rattling in my head since I first watched the clip. Why aren't you taking him house looking? Why are you letting the other people take him? That's Carlisa, to Papa Blue, about Blueface, about the fact that other people, not the parents, not the family, are the ones walking him through the property he just put money down on. It's phrased like a joke. It doesn't land like one, because underneath the joke is a question about who's inside his financial decision-making circle right now, and the implication in the room is that it's not them. And if it's not them, and it's not the mother of his kids, and it's not his official management team on camera, then who is it? Somebody in the comments who's worked in LA real estate or in the artist management pocket that handles rapper property deals, this is your zone. What does the buyer's agent side of a $67,500 down payment escrow on a bachelor pad typically look like for a client under active legal exposure? I'd love to see that math from somebody who's actually run those deals. Let me tighten a couple of specifics before we go further, because the numbers matter and I don't want to fudge them. $67,500 as a down payment in the current Los Angeles market is not a whole purchase figure. On a conventional loan structure, that math typically lines up with a property in the $650,000 to $1.4 million range, depending on the down payment percentage, 5%, 10%, or an escrow deposit on a larger figure with the rest of the down at closing. Blueface didn't disclose the total purchase price on stream. He described it as much bigger than mine and referenced the property being roughly 30 minutes from his current residence. 30 minutes from mid-city in any direction is a very large radius. Could be Woodland Hills. Could be Long Beach. Could be Riverside County. Without a listing address, we're guessing, and I don't guess on paper. What we can say cleanly, $67,500 moved. That's a Tier 1 receipt because it happened on camera on his own stream, with the wire authorization signed on screen and the escrow officer confirming the figure on speakerphone. It's not reported. It's not alleged. It occurred. Whether that money represents 5% of a $1.35 million purchase, 10% of a $675,000 purchase, or an earnest money deposit against a much larger transaction, that's the number we don't have yet. And that's the number the story hinges on when the closing docs eventually get pulled or leaked. Now, here's the thing that's been quietly nagging me. The current house foreclosure. If reporting is accurate that a property tied to his household is in default proceedings, and if the timing of that default is anywhere within the last 12 months, then any new mortgage application, which is what would typically underwrite a purchase this size, should have flagged that in underwriting, which means one of three things is happening. Either the new property is being purchased in cash with only the earnest money hitting escrow at this stage, or it's being purchased through an LLC or third-party buyer with him as an occupant rather than a signer, or the foreclosure situation is further along in resolution than the public conversation suggests and has already been cured or restructured. All three of those are plausible. Two of them are things a lender wouldn't touch. One of them changes who technically owns the bachelor pad the second the ink dries. I lean toward option 2, a purchase structured through an entity rather than his personal signature, but I want to be honest with you. That's a pattern read, not a paper read. The paper on this specific transaction isn't public yet. It will be. LA County recorder filings post on a lag. Once the deed records, whoever's name or LLC's name is on it will tell us the rest of the story. Meanwhile, the internet is running its own version of this, and I want to walk through how the framings are splitting. The first camp, call it the celebration camp, is running with the on-stream vibe. Man bought a house. Man is winning. Congratulations, hit the like button, buy the merch. That framing takes the escrow moment at face value and treats the down payment as evidence of financial recovery. It ignores the appellate case. It ignores the foreclosure conversation. It ignores the fact that the wire didn't clear same day. It's the cleanest, easiest read, and it's the one his own stream is architected to produce. The second camp, call it the skeptic camp, is running the opposite way. This camp reads the entire lobby stream as a smokescreen. The theory in the comments across YouTube reaction threads and various culture blog comment sections is that the purchase is either performative, borrowed against future income, or being funded by a third party whose name isn't showing up on camera. This camp has less paper, but more pattern. It notes the foreclosure. It notes the sentencing. It notes that streaming a bank transaction is not what people with settled financial situations typically do. And it's the camp that's going to end up being right or wrong based on which name eventually appears on the recorded deed. The Steelman for the celebration camp is real, and I want to give it its full weight. Rappers do buy secondary properties. Rappers under legal exposure do continue to conduct business because appellate processes take years and life doesn't pause. Rappers with foreclosure issues on one property do sometimes move to more affordable or differently structured housing precisely because the first arrangement isn't working. And a $67,500 down payment, in the grand scheme of a rap career at his tier, is not a career-defining number. It's a routine number for someone whose gross earnings across the reality show, touring, streaming, and merchandise pipelines have been reported into the multi-million range over the last 4 years. All of that is true. All of that is defensible. The celebration camp isn't wrong to give him space to move. Where the Steelman collapses is on the timing. If the current house foreclosure isn't resolved on paper, and if the new house closing hasn't recorded yet, and if the appellate case hasn't reached a final ruling, then the celebration is being ordered from a menu that hasn't finished cooking. You can be right about the meal and still be early on the toast. Here's where I land. The read I keep coming back to isn't about the house. The house is the artifact. The house is the receipt. The story underneath the receipt is what a specific rapper's public financial rollout looks like in the exact window before a legal outcome he doesn't fully control. And every choice on that stream, the bank lobby setting, the on-camera signature, the 68,000 ask to chat, the pivot to the family reunion, optics at home, the Cavaliers' pitch dropped in the middle of the escrow call, reads like a man building a public narrative of stability while a private clock ticks somewhere he isn't showing us. That's not a moral judgment. That's a marketing read. Because in the rap economy, the appearance of solvency has a market value independent of actual solvency, and streaming a house purchase is one of the highest ROI ways to project that appearance to a fan base whose engagement translates directly into merchandise subscriptions and OnlyFans adjacent revenue. Somebody's going to say, I'm being cynical, that reading a stream through a marketing lens is unfair to a man just trying to live his life. And honestly, fair pushback. If I'm wrong, the recorded deed shows up in his name in 3 to 6 weeks, the foreclosure gets quietly cured, the appeal goes his way, and the whole read collapses into a footnote. I'll take that L on camera when it happens. But right now, based on the paper we have, the paper we don't have, and the pattern of every previous public financial rollout in his career, I lean toward this being a narrative move at least as much as it's a property move. 3 or 4 things I'd bet a small amount of money on watching how this plays out. The recorded deed, when it hits the county recorder, is not going to list Jonathan Michael Porter as the sole signer. It's going to list an LLC or a co-signer or a family member whose name protects him from personal exposure on the mortgage side. That's not a moral read. That's what artist attorneys advise in his exact legal situation every single time. Once that deed records, and somebody pulls it, the ownership structure will tell us more about his real financial position than the entire lobby stream did. Carlisa Saffold's presence in that kitchen isn't a one-off. Watch what happens over the next 3 weeks. Either she becomes a permanent fixture in the new house content rollout, appearing in walkthroughs, appearing in Streamhouse content, appearing in the family reunion framing he was already building on camera, or she disappears from his feed entirely and reemerges on her own channel with a very different version of what's actually happening in that household. Both moves are on the board. The one that lands tells us which relationship is the operative one right now. The foreclosure conversation on the current house is going to resurface before the new house closes, either through a filing update through a public statement from him or from Carlisa, or through a reporter finally pulling the recorder documents on the current property. The two stories can't stay separated for long. The moment they collide in public, and they will, the celebration framing becomes very hard to sustain, and the skeptic framing gets its tier 1 paper. And the residue, the long tail, the thing that outlasts this specific news cycle, is that streaming a bank transaction becomes a documented playbook, not just for him, for everybody in his tier. Because if the numbers on this stream come in strong, the concurrent viewers, the sub count, the clip traction, then every rapper with a mortgage broker on speed dial is going to consider whether the lobby of City National makes for good content. It probably does. And that shift from private financial transactions to publicly performed ones is the industry residue that outlives the specific question of what Blueface bought and when. Loop's closing. The scene we pulled on at the top, the gap between the optics of the purchase and the settlement of the purchase, is the whole read. The wire didn't clear same day. The deed hasn't recorded. The current house is still, in whatever state the foreclosure conversation left it in, the appeal is still pending. And a rapper who is very good at generating attention did what he does very well. He generated attention. Whether the underlying transaction lands the way the stream suggested, is a question that resolves in weeks, not hours. And when it resolves, one of the two framings running the internet right now is going to look correct, and the other is going to look premature. If you rode with this whole receipt, if you sat through the escrow math, the family kitchen, the foreclosure question, the deed prediction, you already know what's next. Hit like so this one gets pushed into the feeds that need it. Subscribe so you don't miss the deed recording follow-up when it drops, and flip the bell on, because that follow-up is the one that either vindicates or embarrasses this read. Drop your call in the comments, celebration camp or skeptic camp, which side you sitting on. I'm reading them. And if you worked on the escrow side, the underwriting side, or the LA property side, and you've got a receipt the team should see, comments are open. The paper trail on this one isn't finished. This is wrap and receipt, and we'll see you at the next filing.